Welcome back to the Daily Plus Live. We're going to take you back to that conversation with the Detroit Economic Club with Devin Scillian and U of M President Santa Ono.
Is something which is mirrored across all the post-secondary higher educational institutions across the country. And it's serious. And it's not only
Muslim students are feeling
Muslim students as well.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
so that is something that we take very seriously. The regents and I, the leadership of the institution, we talk about this constantly, and especially over the past month or so, as you would expect. And so we do have to place the safety of every student, regardless of their religious belief or origin, central to what we do.
Yeah.
And so we spend a lot of time thinking about how we ensure the safety to the best of our ability, how we, through what we say and what we write, set those expectations and really hold people accountable for that.
Well, and you must feel under the microscope as well. When the fighting first broke out, I could not believe the intense critiquing and attention that was placed on the statements that were released by not just U of M and your statement, but universities across the country. It was, I don't remember anything quite like that.
I think it's unprecedented, and you're absolutely right, whether we're talking about Harvard or Pennsylvania or Northwestern or Cornell University, the same thing is happening. There'll be books written about that.
Yeah.
And I think it really boils down to the first general question about whether or not university leaders should be speaking about world events. And there's one group of people that feel, no, you shouldn't, because you're really focused on your education, your institution, what's happening within the institution. But ultimately, most leaders did say something, and that's because when you have this kind of global conflict and there are multiple tensions around the world, it impacts the members of your community, whether you're a student, a staff member, or a faculty member. And the reason why I think most leaders spoke up is because there was an outcry that you need to say something about this event is impacting our lives and our families. So even though it's not core mission, I think sometimes it's appropriate for universities, through their presidents, to speak with moral clarity about things.
Yeah. It was interesting, for another headline from about a month ago. We had gotten to a place long ago where colleges, American universities and colleges, were those ivy-covered towers that seemed apart from too much of America. We wanted it to be more egalitarian and we understood how important a college education was. From the New York Times about a month ago, America is losing faith in the value of college. Whose fault is that? Two-part question, I guess. First off, talk about losing faith in the value of it, and then why is that? Where do we?
Well, first of all, I think there's multiple reasons why that is a situation which is very real. We talk about it. I'm on the executive committee of the Association of Public and Land Grant Universities. Thousands of universities are part of that. And so we understand that is true through opinion polls, that there's a perception issue in terms of the value of a college education. If you actually look at the real data, it's really clear. If you look at a high school student's lifetime earning potential versus a college graduate's or a graduate student's, is a huge advantage. The ROI is multiple fold. And so the data are really clear that the value of having a college degree or a graduate degree is a no-brainer.
I even saw a table recently where college graduates live longer.
They live longer.
Life expectancy.
Absolutely. All that is true. But still, the perception still persists. And I think that the reason for that is partially the university's responsibility. And part of it is what happens on TV, and part of it has to do with what's being said in government. And so it's multifactorial, and the university can take a role in addressing that perception issue in each of these sectors. I mean, truthful journalism, fact-based journalism, which, as you, I'm sure, would admit, is there is a tension that exists currently. There are multiple truths, right? And so
alternate
really
facts,
focusing on that, and also truthful government. You know, there are forces that don't want evidence-based information that is the hallmark of what happens within a university, right? And so that's happened historically, not only in this country, but throughout the history of the world. And so universities have a role in promoting truthful journalism and truthful government, right? Evidence-based governance of cities and states and nations. But universities also have not done a very good job talking about the value proposition. They've been inward looking, to your point, ivory tower, and universities have to, and we will, double down on our responsibilities to the state of Michigan and the city of Detroit and across the entire state. We will do more. It's a priority of mine. It's a priority of the chair of the Board of Regents. And when we do that, then people will understand the value that we bring to the citizens and to the state. So it's partially the university's responsibility.
But it's also, it gets tougher and tougher to make the case for what the debt, we understand what college student debt has done to so many Americans. To sound positively ancient, when I went to college, you know, what I paid for college felt almost like just another living expense in my monthly spending. Now it's a mortgage. And when we watch boards brag about, well, we're only going to raise tuition this year by 2 or 3%. That is not what a lot of Americans need. They need it sliced in half. Do we ever get to a point where we can actually get this back in reach of a lot of people without them going into debt forever?
So that's a priority of the University of Michigan. As you know, we have a Pathways program. We have a Go Blue guarantee. We're very proud of the fact that thousands of Michiganders go to the university tuition free. That's not something that's well known. We've increased that number by several hundred last year alone. And I will be personally working really hard to generate resources so even more can go to the University of Michigan tuition free. So that is really a priority of ours. We recognize that it would be wonderful if we could meet all demonstrated need of all people who are accepted to the institution. We don't quite have the resources to do that now, but as you can see, we're incrementally, in a very dedicated way, trying to make the education, an uncommon education, available to the common person, as has been said at the university.
Yeah.
It's really a commitment of ours.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the mental health of young people today. We spoke earlier to the students here, and you were, I think, very poignant in talking about your own journey with mental health. But we live in right now what psychologists describe as an epidemic of loneliness in the world. This very socially connected world that we have digitally has left us seemingly disconnected personally. And talk a little bit about your own experience with this and what you see among young people today.
Well, when I was a teenager and a high school student, we didn't have cell phones. So my challenges had nothing to do with being too connected to devices.
Sure, right,
but you're absolutely right. Our own data at the University of Michigan clearly shows that that's one driver of loneliness and one of the reasons why we have mental health issues. Absolutely. And we need to, as an educational institution, address that, not only through our research, but what we do within our institutions to really, through things like the Okanagan Charter and the Wellness Initiative, support our students to get them away from that addiction with devices. But there are many other reasons that we have a mental health challenge or epidemic right now. Part of it has to do with geopolitical conflicts, about a feeling of, among many students, that they don't know if they're going to be like we were. There was a time in America that the American dream was that you can always do better than your parents. We're not sure we can say that today. And so part of what we have to do, those of us that run institutions and governments, is to do everything we can so that American dream can be true again for them. Because that feeling of hopelessness or lack of hope in their future is a key driver. The other has to do with things that we can also address, climate change. There's a concern among many youngsters that what they see is a concern about whether the planet will be here when they want to have kids or grandkids. And so it's incumbent on us, because we have received the baton of the world we live in from our parents, And we had a situation when people could look forward to the American dream and to a future that was better than their parents. And we have to do everything we can and double down to give that to the students that are out there. It's partly on us.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know if that answers your question. We were going to do everything we can to support our students once they get to the institution.
But as somebody who's walked that path, you understand this really well too.
I've walked that path, and if you are interested in that path, there's a TED Talk that I gave about the fact that when I was an adolescent and a child, that I had tremendous challenges personally. And the reason why I talked about it as a relatively new president at the University of Cincinnati is because there should be no stigma about talking about mental health challenges. All of us have loved ones who have had mental health challenges. Yep. And the first step is to talk about it so we can support each other. We can talk about asthma, we can talk about cancer, we can talk about a skin disease. We should be able to talk freely and honestly about the challenges that we have and how you overcome it so we can support the youngsters back there. And if you look at that TED Talk, you'll talk about the kinds of things that I've done over the past couple of decades, talking to superintendents, talking to principals, talking to governments to try to get more support for youth so we can address the challenges that you bring up.
Yeah. As we start to wind down our conversation, let's talk about this really thrilling new chapter for the city of Detroit and for the University of Michigan. Groundbreaking now, just announced this week, which is just now about 2 weeks away. Tell me what you see and what we'll see.
You know, I was talking to Richard Florida, who studies, he's at the University of Toronto, and he studies cities, metropolitan areas. And you might have seen, I tweeted out on LinkedIn, I think, a list of the metropolitan areas where startup activity, economic development has grown more than the year before. Detroit is number 2 after Dubai. And Richard Florida said he's bullish on Detroit and Michigan. I am bullish on Detroit and Michigan. Look at these wonderful people here. Look at the next generation. That's why I'm bullish about Detroit. I got to tell you, yesterday, Governor Whitmer has me on the Executive Council of Grow Michigan Together. The future of Michigan are the students that are back there. We want you to stay in the state of Michigan, go to our great universities, and after that, we want you to stay in Michigan because you are our future. And the state gets it, the mayor gets it, the university presidents get it. At our council meeting yesterday, there was someone, a number of people who've been in this state for decades, and they say they've never seen an alignment of stars like they're seeing now. Whether it's the business leaders of Michigan, whether it's the economic club, whether it's the leadership at every single level within the state, and also a lot of friends outside of the state, they've never seen something like today. And so I think that some of the recommendations of the Grow Michigan Together Council are spot on. And we have to do everything we can to support this governor and the next governor to make sure that some of those recommendations really come to reality. We got to be strategic. We can't do everything. Some of them, I think, if you look at the virtuous cycle of what makes a great, strong city or state, it focuses on talent attraction, you guys, job creation. That generates the revenues through taxes to really support the infrastructure and everything that makes a great city and a great state thrive. And so you're going to see that. It's going to be released in early December. And I'm going to tell you, the University of Michigan is going to do everything in our power to support those recommendations. Because as I've often said, I don't want this to be known as just the University of Michigan. I want this to be known as the University for Michigan and for Detroit.
That's fantastic. The mayor has a few questions of his own.
Well, it's the audience's turn, and there's some fascinating questions, things I didn't know. So the first one is, what excites you about the University of Michigan's hydrogen initiative?
Well, you know, we are one of the recipients of federal funding, and we have an incredible critical mass of researchers and students that are at the cutting edge of hydrogen as an alternative sustainable fuel. And so I'm excited about that. I'm thankful for contributions from the state government on that. And I think that we will continue to be a national and hopefully global leader in that area.
Okay. How do you judge Michigan's women's sports programs against other schools? What would go into a decision to take women's club hockey and make it a varsity sport?
Well, last time I looked, I think the women's ice hockey team was number 4. And the club hockey, and you know, they're incredible, and I'm a big fan of theirs, and you probably know I've tried to support them financially by paying for the rink fees at Yost. I would love to see that happen. You know, we have an athletic director, Ward Manuel. It's really his job to do that, but there are things to consider in terms of the infrastructure, but I personally would love to see that happen, to be frank.
All right, well, somebody in the room is a hockey player.
Yeah.
Good to know there's an opportunity. With the growth of enrollment, there's been a student housing shortage on campus in recent years. What are you doing to address that?
Well, some of you may know that we have a lot of holes in the ground right now. If you drive around Ann Arbor, it's hard to get around. The traffic is pretty bad. And that's because we are addressing the student housing shortage in a big way. We currently have the largest student residence hall construction project anywhere in the United States right now. Phase 1 is 2,600 beds. The second phase will be about the same. It's going to be first-rate housing. It's going to address the affordability of housing not only for students but also residents in Ann Arbor. So we're really committed to that. And in our 2050 plan, we've got plans for staff, for employees, for graduate students. And so this is something that's going to be a long-term investment by the institution over the next decade.
And I think the one that you're building now is the first one for freshmen built since like 1963?
Yeah, from around when I was born, since back then.
Yeah. Here's one that I hadn't heard. Are there any programs that U of M doesn't currently offer that you're working to bring back to the school? What about bringing back journalism degrees?
Well, you know, I got to...
Yes, what about that?
That is something for the deans and the provost to work on. But we really are, however, the Wallace Center is really a gem. And Chris and Mike Wallace, when he was alive, you know, that center and how it brings together faculty and students to really talk about the importance of journalism is something we're very proud of. And so it's really a matter for them to discuss. I think journalism, as I said, is incredibly important in society.
Okay, do you have... so if you thought that was hard, you have thoughts on the future of U of M Flint?
I'm excited about the future of UM Flint. I got to tell you, you probably have heard that we've had now 2 years of enrollment growth. We have a great interim chancellor in Donna Fry, who's been there since 1986. She loves University of Michigan Flint. She bleeds maize and blue. We're in the midst of looking for a permanent chancellor. I met with the search firm today. We have some great candidates already. The community has been thinking about a transformation plan. The university plans to invest in Flint. And so I'm pretty happy about the future of UM Flint right now.
Well, that's good to hear. All right. They say there is a new Michigan medical hospital being built. Can you talk to us about that?
Well, there's actually a number of investments that are happening with Michigan medicine. The building that you're probably referring to is the Dan and Betty Kahn Pavilion, which is a very large tower that will have new focus on neuroscience and neurologic disease, but it'll also bring many beds onto campus that are incredibly important. And so if you drive around campus, you'll see the skin is already on the building. It's been topped up. And it's going to take a little bit more time for all the beds and machinery to be put into the building, but that's coming online pretty soon. As you know, we just expanded with the Sparrow member substitution into Michigan Medicine, which is really terrific. And so we are looking at how we can serve Michiganders even more through our planning through Michigan Medicine, and we're excited about that.
Okay, so
All right, and you have been watching an interview with the University of Michigan's President Santa Ono. Devin Scillian was the one who was asking a lot of the questions. Of course, now Mayor Mike Duggan is bringing some questions from the audience. He talked about everything from Jim Harbaugh to the affordability of college to the mental health of students on campus. And we're going to have all of that for you coming up on later editions of Local 4 News.